Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, I'm going to do a review of the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky. This is finished in a Sauternes cask. But before I get into this whiskey, I'm going to tell you about the profile of Glenmorangie Distillery, their core range, and this whiskey. Glenmorangie Distillery is located on what was once Morangie Farm in Tain, Rossshire, Scotland. The name Glenmorangie is derived from a Gaelic term meaning Valley of Tranquility. Glenmorangie Distillery was founded in 1843 by William Matheson. The current owner of Glenmorangie Distillery is the Glenmorangie Company Limited, which is a subsidiary of Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, also known as LVMH. Glenmorangie's water source is Tarlogie Springs in the Tarlogie Hills. They have a 10.3 ton full lauter mash tun, 12 stainless steel washbacks with a fermentation time of 52 hours, 12 stills consisting of 6 wash stills and 6 spirit stills, advertised as the tallest in Scotland. Glenmorangie uses a number of different cask types, with all products being matured in white oak casks, which are manufactured from trees growing in Glenmorangie's own forest in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri in the United States. The casks are left to air for 2 years before being leased to distillers Jack Daniels and Heaven Hill for them to mature bourbon in for 4 years. Glenmorangie's core expressions are the Glenmorangie X Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged in ex-bourbon and new charred oak cask. It's bottled at 40% alcohol by volume. It's intended to be used in cocktails. The Glenmorangie 10-year-old, the original Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged for 10 years in first and second fill American white oak, bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. The Glenmorangie 12-year-old La Santa Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged for 12 years in ex-bourbon and ex-sherry cask, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. The Glenmorangie 14-year-old Quinta Reuben Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged for 14 years in ex-bourbon and port cask, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. And the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged in ex-bourbon and Sauternes cask, bottled at 46% alcohol by volume. So in 1855, there was a world fair in France, and they wanted to showcase the best wines from the Bordeaux region. So there was first growth, second growth, third growth, and so forth of the Haut Medoc and the Medoc and the Grave and Sauternes region. So originally there were 4 first growth, and then later one was elevated to first growth from second growth. And I've been to 4 out of the 5 first growth or Premier Cru Chateau in Bordeaux. I went to Bordeaux in 2016. Of the Sauternes, there were first growths, but there was one that was in a class by itself, which is a Premier Cru Superior. Only one Sauternes made it into that category, and that was Chateau Yquem. All right. Now, first of all, what is Sauternes? Sauternes is a region in the southern part of the Grave region, or the southern part of the Bordeaux region. Sauternes are made in a very special way. Now, you have several different ways in which you can make a sweet wine. You can have one made from dried grapes. These are traditionally called straw wines because the grapes would be laid out on straw mats and left out to dry. That would then shrink, concentrate the sugars. Pedro Jimenez, which you hear a lot about in whiskey, is a straw wine. Another is an ice wine or ice vine, in which the grapes are allowed to remain on the vine and become frozen, and then they handpick these little frozen grapes, and you have a very concentrated, very, 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 very sweet grapes. Well, Sauternes and Tokaj from Hungary are what they call botrytis wines. Botrytis cinerea. I mean, what is that? Botrytis is like a fungus that infects the grapes sucks the moisture out of it, and then concentrates the sugars, so you end up with something very, 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 very sweet. Well, fortunately, the sun comes in, which then causes the fog to go away. Otherwise, you end up with a gray rot, and you wouldn't want that. So what you have in the Sauternes region is a very, very, very shriveled grape. They don't look real pretty, to tell you the truth, if you look at the botrytis-infected grapes. However, what is left behind is a very delicate grape that has to be hand harvested. They will hand harvest the little bunches, sometimes the individual grapes. And they don't do the entire vineyard all at once. They go back through it over and over and over again just to select the botrytis-infected grapes. Now, when you have the concentration of the sugar, a lot of the moisture has already been taken out of it, you don't get a lot of juice out of them. So, you don't get a whole lot of juice out of it. They had really a lot of manual labor going in order to hand harvest and go through it multiple times. So consequently, Sauternes can be really, really expensive. And in some years, they might not even be produced. Chateau Yquem, right, the top of the line for Sauternes, isn't even harvested every year because they don't get the Sauternes. They're not allowed to artificially induce the botrytis. All right. Now let me see, Erik, why are you going on all of this? And just because it's finished in a Sauternes cask. Well, who do you think owns Chateau Yquem, the top of the Sauternes producers? Well, it's Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton, also known as LVMH. And some of you may already know, that may sound very familiar because LVMH also owns Ardbeg Distillery, and they own Glenmorangie, the Glenmorangie. Now, nowhere on the bottle does it say that Chateau Yquem casks were used for finishing this whiskey. But if you own LVMH and you own Chateau Yquem and you own Glenmorangie, why would you go somewhere else to get casks to finish your whiskey from a Sauternes cask? It wouldn't make sense to me. And what are you going to do with those casks after you use them out of Chateau Yquem? Seems to me they got to be making good use out of the Chateau Yquem cask. So my guess is, again, we don't know this for sure, but it seems logical that they would use Chateau Yquem casks to produce Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or. Now I can tell you, I've had Chateau Yquem, I've had multiple vintages of Chateau Yquem. What saves Chateau Yquem, because it's very, 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 very sweet, it's very high in acid. The grapes that are used is Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, very, very, very high acid wines. So the sweetness of the wine isn't unctuous, it isn't super thick and cloying and stuff like that. So it tends to have a very, very, very clean finish, right? So enough about Sauternes, let's get into this whiskey. Now everything, if you've ever had a Sauternes that you would expect from a Sauternes cask shows up in this whiskey, and it's absolutely superb. On the nose, first thing you get is honey. Sauternes are always going to have that nice honey note. Orange, but it's like a concentrated orange, maybe orange candy. Some spice, I would say spiced ginger, cinnamon, vanilla, a nice floral note. Maybe even a little bit of a lemon, sort of an orange creamsicle character. But the dominant character is that honey and the orange. On the palate, This is a really lovely whiskey. The honey and the orange show up on the front end. Maybe a little bit of lemon as well. And some vanilla kicks in the middle. A very distinctive maltiness all the way through. As you exhale, you can pick up additional flavors or even aromas. As you exhale, the floral notes come in. And when you get on the finish, it's very, very, very clean. It feels, I don't want to say pristine. It feels pretty. It comes across as maybe a little bit dainty. It has elegance and beauty and grace to it. This is not a super thick, it's not like you're drinking honey. Like honey would be really, really thick, right? It's not thick or cloying. It's very clean. Now, it doesn't have acidity per se like a wine does, but it does come across as a very sweet, a highly acidic, very crisp wine. And if it wasn't for the higher ABV, you know, being at 46% alcohol by volume, I couldn't remember if it was 43 or 46% alcohol by volume, it's not going to be a wine. But it has those characteristics. If you've ever had a Sauternes or Tokaj or a Muscat Canal or something like that, it has those characteristics to it. So I think this is a really nice whiskey. I would place it as maybe as a dessert whiskey after you've had dinner. You want something a little bit sweet, something that's going to cleanse the palate. Maybe you've had some pesto or garlic or something like that. This is a place where I'd have something like this. Or as an aperitif before dinner, about an hour before you have dinner, you have a wee dram of this. Is really, really nice. Sort of get the palate going. The nice thing is also because it's clean. It's not like after you have this and go eat something that you're still going to be tasting it. That this is going to somehow majorly affect what you're then eating, as say a peated whiskey would. It's a really, really nice, clean finish. I would say that the finish is medium to medium plus, and like it's really, really, really nice. Well, I'm going to give in terms of score, I'm going to go solid 90 points. A solid 90 points. What would I want to go higher? It doesn't have a huge range of flavors. It's not a really, really complex whiskey in that sense. But what it has, it does really, 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 really well. All right, that's it for this video. If you subscribe to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you have not yet subscribed, but you like watching my videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when I go live or post a new video. Until next time, Slàinte. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.